Her tongue was severed for lies, but one human mechanic discovered she'd spoken the truth. The junkyard on the outskirts of Varro's station was a graveyard of broken ships and broken promises. Rusted hulls leaned like skeletons against each other. Fractured engine cores bled faint blue coolant into the dust, and the air always reeked of ozone and burned metal. Cade Mercer had worked here for nearly a decade. Most people looked at the wreckage and saw nothing but salvage. Cade saw stories. He could tell what kind of life a ship had lived just by looking at its scars. Still, even he wasn't prepared for the cargo they dumped into the yard that morning. It wasn't a ship. It was a woman. She was shackled at the ankles and wrists, her skin a pale shimmer of silver blue, catching the harsh Varro's sunlight like metal polish too thin. She wore rags of what must once have been ceremonial garb, golden threads dulled by grime. Her mouth bore the worst wound of all, the jagged scar where her tongue had been cut. The guards dumped her like a piece of scrap. For her lies, one of them spat in guttural trade tongue. Let her rot with the wrecks. Cade had seen a lot in the junkyard. Stowaways suffocated in sealed compartments, smugglers torn apart by malfunctioning drones, but never this. He felt a heat coil in his chest, equal parts anger and pity. When the guards were gone, he approached carefully. "Hey," he said softly, crouching by her side. "You alive?" Her eyes cracked open. They were luminous silver, reflecting his face back at him. She tried to speak, but only made a hollow sound in her throat, her hands trembling as if she wanted to explain, to beg, to scream. "Easy," Cade murmured. He unfastened the shackles, his tools quicker than any official key. The woman flinched, but didn't resist. When she was free, she pointed to her mouth, then dragged her finger across the dirt to write clumsy symbols.
"Truth. Punished."
Cade frowned. "Truth." She nodded desperately. Her eyes shone with anguish. Over the next few days, Cade gave her food, water, a blanket from his quarters in the workshop. She barely ate at first, afraid it was a trick, but hunger won. She used gestures and scribbles to communicate, though her script was fragmented, written in the old dialect of her people. Her name was Sarah. She'd been an oracle on her world, gifted or cursed with visions. Her people's rulers demanded she pronounce only convenient truths, but when Sarah foresaw betrayal within the royal court, she spoke it aloud. For that, they branded her a liar, severed her tongue, and cast her out. "I don't know if I believe in visions," Cade admitted one night, tightening bolts on a scavenged thruster while Sarah watched him work. "But I've seen enough corruption in this galaxy to believe they'd silence someone telling the wrong kind of truth." Her eyes softened. She touched her chest, then his hand, then the engine. Slowly, she scrawled a phrase. "Your hands equals heal, not destroy." He chuckled. "Well, I try." But inside, her words gnawed at him. 2 weeks later, a transport ship rolled into the junkyard, one of the royal convoys from Sarah's system. The guards escorted a new load of wreckage, but Cade caught enough of their chatter to sense trouble. They mentioned the silenced oracle and unfinished business. That night, Sarah tugged at his sleeve and drew frantic images in the dirt. A star, a throne, a crown shattering. Her silver eyes pleaded with him. "You're saying," Cade hesitated, "your vision is still coming true?" She nodded violently. "And if it does, they'll come for you again." Her answer was written in shaking lines. "Already hunting. Must prove truth." Cade scrubbed a hand over his stubble jaw. He was a mechanic, not a revolutionary. He wanted a quiet life fixing ships, not standing against alien kings. But Sarah's presence had become more than a burden. She laughed, without sound, at his grumbling, helped him sort tools, even sat beside him through long nights of work, as if keeping him company repaid her debt. He couldn't imagine the yard without her now. "All right," he muttered. "Then we prove it." The next weeks were a blur of risk. Using fragments from wrecked royal ships, Cade pieced together data cores, encrypted logs, and partial star charts. Sarah guided him, tracing her memories of what she'd foreseen. Together, they uncovered evidence of the betrayal she had tried to warn her people about, a high-ranking counselor selling out their defenses to raiders. One night, as Cade decrypted the last file, Sarah leaned close, her hand trembling on his arm. The data confirmed everything. The betrayal was real. She hadn't lied. Cade looked at her, and for the first time, he didn't see a broken exile. He saw a woman who had clung to truth at the cost of everything. "You were right," he whispered. Tears streaked down her silver-blue cheeks. She mouthed a soundless word.
Thank you.
But truth had teeth. The next day, the royal guards stormed the junkyard. They weren't here for scrap. They were here for her. Cade shoved Sarah behind an engine block as plasma fire ripped through the air. He ducked, dragged her toward the back of the yard. "They know we've got proof," he hissed. "We've got to get out." She shook her head, scrawling on a scrap of metal with oil. Truth must reach stars. He knew what she meant. If they just ran, the secret would die with them. They had to get the evidence off-world. So Cade did what he did best. Built. Under fire, he and Sarah scrambled into the half-restored freighter he'd been patching for months. Sparks rained. Alarms shrieked, but the thrusters roared to life under his touch. Sarah pressed her hand to the console, eyes closed in silent prayer. The freighter blasted out of the junkyard, leaving flames and fury behind. They didn't get far before damage forced them to land on a barren moon. Cade cursed, slamming tools into place, while Sarah pointed insistently toward the stars. She knew the betrayal would come to light soon. The raiders would strike her people's homeworld any day. Cade uploaded the decrypted files into the freighter's beacon and set it to broadcast wideband to any passing authority. "There," he panted.
"The truth's out now."
"Even if we don't make it, they'll know." Sarah sagged against him, her scarred mouth trembling. He wrapped an arm around her, pulling her close. "They tried to silence you," he murmured, "but your voice carried anyway." Her fingers brushed his cheek, gentle, grateful. For the first time since he'd found her in the junkyard, she smiled. Weeks later, news spread through the sector. The corrupt counselor had been exposed, the betrayal thwarted. The oracle who had been punished for lies was now vindicated, though officials tried to bury the truth of her suffering. But Sarah didn't care for their recognition. She had already found what mattered. In the dim light of Cade's workshop, now rebuilt on a safer outpost, she sat beside him, her scarred mouth unable to form words, but her presence louder than any voice. He fixed ships. She fixed him. And together, they lived not by the silence forced upon her, but by the truth they had chosen to keep alive.